Okay, everyone, we have our next set of questions. You want to come and take a seat? How's that sound?
A little better, yeah. It's just a cola.
Okay, we have questions from the audience. Done a bit of editing without taking away the intent of the question. We hope we've clarified it a bit better. And we're going to go through. You guys don't use your wild cards. You don't get to take them home, okay? So use them.
Can we give them away to other candidates?
For money, like?
No, just wild card. Could I give mine away?
You can have mine, Peter.
No, I'm offering to give you one.
Okay. So we're sticking with the format. And I'll go back to the original starting point. It has been pointed out to me from some folks in the audience that they might want to hear more on. You've been giving great personal opinions and stuff, and a bit of party stuff, but some people might like to hear a bit more about what the party position is on some of these issues. Just feedback from the crowd. Okay, so we're going to start off, and we'll start with Conservatives. Do you believe the elected party, so whoever's in government, do you believe that party should move forward to cover all diabetic medication that the provincial and federal governments have agreed to?
Well, I will. Can I have a timeout?
Do you want to call Ben that? Stop the clock. Oh, yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Do they know they have 2 minutes?
Sorry, Mark, you can start.
Okay, great, thank you very much. Okay, so as an MLA, I was able to advocate and support the medication for Hep C. That was about $80,000. I advocated also for for Parkinson's, extreme Parkinson's for pump. That was about $100,000, but it saw a change. So certainly, that's where I would say that I personally am. I will say that Conservative Party wants to bring as many supports as possible, bearing in mind that these supports come from a robust economy. And our economy over the past 10 years has been stagnant per capita growth. We're falling down in standings. And so we need to see that in order to provide some of the needs. Also keep in mind that a lot of these initiatives, that healthcare is primarily under the provincial government, but the federal government also has a role to play. Thank you.
Who's next, Brad?
Sorry, Daniel.
Is it the same question for all of us?
Same question.
Okay.
I addressed this earlier on. Healthcare should be a human right. We shouldn't be nitpicking about who gets what medication to make sure they can live their life to the fullest. Obviously, there's a financial implication to that, and the economy will drive how much we can do, but we should make every effort to prioritize healthcare. As Marc said, it's primarily driven at the provincial level, but there's a lot of scope to bring in policies and bring in funding from the federal level that can go down to the provinces and make sure they can enact proper healthcare systems and proper healthcare programs. 100% agree.
Naturally, I'm in favor of all healthcare being looked after by our universal healthcare program. I think we can judge more accurately what party positions are by actions and by how people have voted in Parliament. And there is, of course, a strong move towards privatizing healthcare from one of the federal parties that doesn't seem to be reflected in the rhetoric that I'm hearing.
Yes.
Can you hear it? Okay. How's that? Can you hear me up there?
I don't know why you're not.
I might start shouting. Testing, testing, testing.
No.
Nothing there. No about that. No. Hello. Is it plugged in? To reboot it?
We can share ours with you.
Okay, this is, for the rest of your questions, consider this statement. Platitudes and promises are easy and plentiful during elections. What ones are you giving today that have the support of your party that you will be accountable for? Platitudes and promises are easy. That's a country song, I think, but and plentiful during elections. What ones are you giving today that have the support of your party that you will be accountable for?
The piece that I can be accountable for without question is collaborative work. If I would have to describe something that I'm very good at, it's collaborative work. It's bringing people to the table, it's bringing ideas and people together, and it's creating win-win solutions. And I want to say one more thing. Sorry, I'm just thinking, I'm not accountable for this, but I will say on behalf of the Liberal Party, Marc Carney said he was going to cut the carbon tax, and he did it.
So just a clarifying question. Being accountable, that means if we don't do it, we're held to account for it? Or say you didn't do it. Exactly, okay. Just checking. Yeah, so housing, affordable housing is a big one that's on everyone's mind right now. I brought it up, I said I wouldn't even be able to buy in my own community right now. The houses have gone up so crazily. So making sure that that housing plan is pushed forward using Canadian labor and Canadian steel and Canadian lumber, and making sure that we develop affordable communities is a huge part of the NDP platform right now. They've been talking about it for the last few days. Healthcare, universal pharmacare, these are huge parts of the NDP platform. So making sure that, I touched on it earlier, making sure that there's someone in Parliament to hold the rest of Parliament accountable, making sure that they actually push these plans through like they did with pharmacare, dental care, child care, anti-scab legislation, etc., etc. Someone has to be there to hold us accountable. So if we were to get in, making sure that we push that and hold the other parties accountable and get the votes and make sure we build these houses and develop these healthcare plans.
Platitudes and pleasantries, and it is fairly poetic as the start of a country song. I always start country songs with, well, and then I start naming cities. However, when it comes to accountability and party policies and platitudes, I don't belong to like a coherent party that's got a coherent policy. So if I was elected, I would be completely independent, and I could choose each decision and each vote individually on its own merits and not based on what the rest of the party was saying. I think that's enough, but I will say that, regarding housing, how many of you here have been rent evicted 3 times in the last 10 years? It's not a competition.
So promises are really easy to make. We heard one from Mr. Carney recently that they're going to make a high-speed train between Toronto and Quebec City. The only thing is, it was promised the last election and the election before that. So this is ongoing. For me, it's listening to what the community. I make that commitment to listen to the community, to respond, to act upon it. Maple Ridge, this area, is not the same it was 10 years ago. We have seen decline. We have seen crime. We have seen drug abuse. I go to my office right downtown by Tim Hortons, and more often than not, you'll see someone that is overdosed. You'll see all sorts of things. I think we need to recognize that. I brought forward a bill a motion M88 on recovery and treatment to help. It's not the only solution, but that is part of our problem, our promise to bring 50,000 new beds, recovery and treatment beds, as opposed, remembering that 50,000 people have died of overdose since the Liberals have been in power.
Right. I haven't heard a single peep tonight about Gaza. And I think this is something we should all consider. That the parties in power have had the opportunity to stop supplying arms, to stop enabling the oppressor. Where is the integrity there? Should we hear more?
Try again.
Okay, I get back to Mike. You, sir, have just wasted a wild card. The next question. What is your perspective on the war in Gaza?
As some of you may know, for the last 8 years, I was the Director of Security for the Jewish community in the entire province of British Columbia. Up until the last year and a half, it was a pretty different job. Since the war started in Gaza, it has been exponentially difficult and hard to work in the community with regards to how they are treating legitimate protests against the genocide. And that is a word we can't say. It has become a genocide, targeting schools, targeting hotels, targeting hospitals. It's genocide, without a doubt, and you should be able to stand up and say that. We should be absolutely stopping the arms stopping the arms trade, having an embargo. They said that it stopped. They may have stopped new trade, but they are still continuing with the existing trade deals. We should be recognizing Palestine as a state. We should be. And that's my comment.
Thank you.
I think most of us know this is a deeply complex issue, and honestly, I'm not well equipped enough to answer to it.
Yes, unfortunately, the Liberals play both sides. They play from the Muslim side and the Israel side. They don't take some real stands. I will say the Conservatives stand for democracy. We stand with the Ukraine. We stand for their ability to defend themselves. We can't forget that on October the 7th, 1,200 people were killed, butchered, babies, children, women. We can't forget that. Israel has a right to defend itself. It is a democracy. We support that. And keep in mind also that is the only democracy in the Middle East. We have the 20% of the population is Muslim. They can elect Muslim representatives. They have the Druze population. So we do support democracy, but we do not agree with overreach at all.
Wow.
There's a big difference between 1,200 after 75 years of apartheid discrimination and abuse and one day of an attack, and then followed by a year and a half where there's 50, 60,000 people now dead, 70% of whom are women and children. That's a big difference. That's a really big difference. Targeting children, targeting journalists, targeting healthcare professionals. It has nothing to do with Ukraine. Nothing whatsoever. I don't know why that was even brought up.
Not a question, but just to expand on
Wild card.
So, when we fight wars, you have a legitimate claim to defend yourself. Obviously, the right to self-defense is inherent. But when we fight wars, there's rules for the law of war. There's rules that we have to abide by, and some of those are proportionality, like how we fight, who we are targeting, and the military necessity of that attack. which is fine. You have to be able to do that. But making those informed decisions when you're pushing the button, when you're dropping a bomb, when you're pulling a trigger, and schools, hospitals. Just recently, there was in the news massacre of the humanitarian relief workers, the aid workers. They were bound. Their hands were tied. They were execution, closed shot. This was not a random fog of war incident that were deliberately targeted. The lights were on. We've seen the footage that came out. So.
So this next question I have to preface with the statement or the question: will your party increase spending on the military as most of the major parties are promising? If you do fund it, will it be at the expense of cuts to social services, increased taxes? How exactly are you going to fund it? And we'll start with.
Yeah, the plan is to increase spending in the military, but it has to be phased in over time to account for the things that you're talking about, to account for how it will impact the economy, where the funding has to come from. Marc said the economy's been a little bit stagnant, so we need to find ways to improve the economy so that there is funding to go to the right places. We are lagging behind, and it's partly because we have been so reliant on our southern neighbor who has picked up the slack for us, and we've become complacent. The numbers have dropped, our equipment is old. We need to make sure that we are putting that resources back into the military to make us a viable force in the world for peacekeeping, for humanitarian missions like we used to do in the past. And we need to find a new partner with the EU and make sure that we are developing our military so that we can support the world as it needs to be, but also support at home with the fires, with the floods, with other problems that we're facing at home.
The Liberal Party has committed to increasing spending for the military, as we should, and I agree as well, again, with partnering with the EU to protect the countries that we are partnered with.
So, the Liberal Party again has committed to increasing, but the fact is they decrease. Dan, you would know, the reserve, I talked to the colonel in charge of reserve forces in British Columbia, and he told me not too long ago that the Liberals, though they promised increases, have slashed reserve budget for reserve training by 50%. They don't have money for ammunition. It's a shame. I know my assistant, her grandson just got out. He said, they don't have the finances to do training or anything like that. Under the Liberals, it's become a shambles. We're not meeting our NATO obligations of 2%. The Conservatives will increase that to 2%. We are facing a lot of global threats. And so this is a very important question and an important thing that Canada must do. We used to have the third largest Air Force and fourth largest Navy after the Second World War. I'm not saying we have to be a global power, but we should stand on our own 2 feet because we've got great people. We need to increase and put the money into it.
A friend of mine is a captain in the Canadian Army. She's been back and forth to Middle East a number of times. She just returned from Doha, I believe, where she was helping the Americans with targeting of people and structures in Yemen. I don't see how this is benefiting Canadians, okay? I think when I look back on my life, I think of Canadian military doing nation building, doing community support in war-torn parts of the world. So in terms of getting tough and getting the brand new bang bang and the brand new whiz whiz, I don't really think that ought to be our priority, especially when that money comes from our social programs, and that's what will be sacrificed first, which is something that we truly need. Whereas, a bunch of F-35s, I'm really wondering about how that's going to benefit Canadians like you.
One more time.
I know it's getting very exciting now. I just wanted to say that I'm representing the new Liberal Party under Marc Carney, and there's no doubt he is going to make the commitment to NATO funding and our military here at home, to our Canadian troops.
Try that one. I think so. I hope so.
Another gold card.
So Trump has actually said, yes, I get it. Yes, he's actually said,
No booze.
he talked about annexation of Canada, and none of us supported that. None of us. But one of the things he said, well, listen, they don't defend themselves anyways. They're just focused, they're not focused on defense. We're the one that's doing all the defense. That falls under the current government. The Conservatives will build up our military. We've announced a new base up in the north, polar icebreakers for the military, doubling our size as far as rangers in the Arctic. We'll protect our sovereignty from all threats.
Okay, next question. I'm going to test this. This is working now? Please outline your party's policies on women's rights and their ability to control what happens to their bodies.
That's a fabulous question. And you know what? I am completely unqualified to answer what women should do with their bodies because I'm not a woman. So you know what? I'll give my time to Angie.
I don't need much more time than that because I believe that a woman's health care should be decided between her and her health care provider, and that's the end of the conversation.
I got nothing else to say on that. It's not my call, woman and the doctor, and that's it.
So the Conservatives have been very clear about this, and under Pierre Poilievre, that there will be no change to the abortion rights, women's rights. And I will say that also, even on gay rights, that our deputy leader, Melissa Lanceman, is a gay married woman. And we, so there's, I know that you see, they're going to change the abortion. We don't. Stephen Harper was Prime Minister for 10 years, the Conservative Party, and every election, abortion, where you're going to get rid of abortion rights. Well, you know what? There was absolutely no change under him, and there will be no change under Pierre Poilievre.
Another wild card. This is going crazy.
So a question for you, Marc. If there was a bill to come before the House with regards to this topic, how would you vote?
So, under the government moves the legislation beforehand, and we will not be advancing any abortion legislation. That's final, and so that is what I've set the doors, and that's what I support that. I have my own personal views. I'm allowed to have my personal views. I'm allowed to have my personal views, and all of us have different views. My wife and I don't always agree, so that's fine. But that is a commitment that we made, that he has made as a leader, and that I am a part as a Conservative member will follow.
Okay, next question. What role do you think reporters play in today's society? Do you think you need to respond to all different reporters' questions?
Having a free press is vital for a healthy democracy. You should be taking all reporters' questions. The viability of that question, the biases that come with how they frame a question and how they then report on that after, you can't do much about that. Take the question in good faith, answer the question as best you can, and move on and let them spin it how they want. You know what you've done and you know where you stand on the issues.
Ditto. I don't mean to be taking the easy out. Clearly, we agree on a lot of things. I cannot imagine a set of circumstances or a time where I would not answer a question from a reporter. I'm devastated to see so few reporters. I mean, with everything going online, we're not investing. I mean, that business has been, I'd say, decimated in many ways. And is another reason why I support the CBC continuing to be the
Media has been a good friend to me. I was interviewed this week by this man, right here in the front row. The CBC provided work for my daughter as a writer for This Hour is 22 Minutes for a couple of years. And you know, the majority of the news that I get is from the Beaverton and from the Onion. So why am I even talking to you?
So I do notice that Mr. Carney is being very evasive on a lot of his answers to the media, whether it be on hiding from Brookfield $35 billion in tax-free havens in Bermuda, and we find out today that the Cayman Islands, another $5 billion. So there's some questions that he needs to answer, like what is going on. A few days after Trump comes in, he moves the Brookfield headquarters that he is a chair. He moved it down to New York City. So there's a lot of questions. He is not answering all the questions, and those questions need to be answered.
See if I can remember her name. I think it's Rachel Gilmore. I don't know if any of you know who she is. She's a journalist, very on top of things, very smart woman, asks a lot of good questions, a long history of being a good reporter, and she was cancel culture. I don't know what the term is, but she was cut from doing fact-checking. Now, fact-checking, I think, is an absolutely critical part of what the media brings to people like you. Okay, brings to voters, people like you. People can get up here and spout whatever kind of nonsense they want, but if they're not held accountable for it, if there isn't someone there to say, well, that's not exactly true, that's not exactly the way that you worded it last time we asked you, then what do we got? Yeah. All right. Accountability is key.
Okay. In the current Trump-induced crisis, I'm just reading it. Don't blame me. No. Concern for Indigenous peoples and their livelihoods have been receded. I have a hard time reading it a bit. Anyway, you get the impact. They've been impacted, Indigenous nations. What will your party do to address this issue? Livelihood and happiness of Indigenous peoples. Who wants it?
I'll do it.
Okay.
I worked in jails. I was a teacher for 23 years, and a very sad part of that was the high proportion of Indigenous people that are behind bars. Very, very sad. It would be wonderful if there would be an alternative to prison for the people that are caught breaking the law or for any reason ending up in jail. It would be wonderful if there were other alternatives. I know that it's a result of poverty, that it's a result of fetal alcohol and drugs syndromes, and it's also, and this is an opinion, and I don't have proof of this, but I think they're targeted a lot by the police. Okay? We have to do better for our Aboriginal people in this country. And when we're talking about things like what's happening in Gaza, remember, historically, Canadians don't have a leg to stand on.
I touched on this a little bit earlier on one of the questions, but making sure that we are supporting the Indigenous people as much as we can whenever we're representing them in Ottawa, making sure we're addressing the broken treaty promises, making sure we're addressing the land claims that they are owed. They've been pushed onto small parcels of land, scattered up, bands broken up. This isn't acceptable. There's still many bands under water advisories. This has been promised for years and years and years, and it's still not been delivered. Like, deliver a healthy way of living, and that will impact them massively, right? If we're not giving them food, we're not giving them water, we're not giving them infrastructure, we're not giving them transit, this impacts how they see the rest of society and how they then end up in the situations you're talking about, right? It's a knock-on effect from all these fundamental things that they are lacking in their communities right now.
I briefly mentioned a recent trip to Heydenrych. Given the opportunity, it's amazing what any group of people can do, given the freedoms, given the resources, and I guess it gets more complicated, obviously, in different parts when you have multiple bands or multiple groups claiming and overlapping claims. In a perfect world, what is happening in Heydenrych would be delightful absolutely everywhere. It's specific to the tariffs and how Indigenous people may be suffering now. Of course, the commitment right now from the government is to use money from tariffs to help anybody who is affected. So I'm not sure why that would be any different for them, quite honestly.
Conservative Party want Indigenous people to prosper, just like we want all Canadians to prosper. And where is the prosperity to be found among Indigenous people, especially in their territories? It's in the land, whether it's forestry, fishing, oil and gas. And the policies that have come under this current government have actually suppressed the creation of wealth, employment, opportunities. There was a pipeline that was supposed to go up to the Kinmat Port Rupert, and it was supported by virtually all the Indigenous peoples. There was we found that the government found some spokespeople that were not even, I'm talking about the Wet'suwet'en, the leadership wanted it, the people wanted it, but there were a few that didn't, and so they canceled it. That was one of the things, they canceled the whole project. So we will allow projects to move forward with proper environmental assessment and negotiations, because we want them to do well.
What is your position on vaccine mandates during the pandemic and vaccines in general?
Holy cow. Okay, I'm no doctor, okay? I don't have a medical background to do this. I can tell you just some anecdotal things, though, okay? For a lot of us, back when COVID was the panic, it was no jab, no job. And frankly, that doesn't reflect the kind of personal choices people should be able to make. Okay, again, this is my opinion, okay? I'm not a doctor, okay? Are anybody here? No, I don't think so. It should be an individual choice by my opinion. Now, again, what we had to do with COVID was take an experimental vaccine. I mean, it really was not very well tested. If we're going to be, using people as guinea pigs, we should have the things tested better before we force it down everyone's throat.
So, I'm not a doctor. I work in the security industry, but in that security role that I've played a vital role in setting up humanitarian programs all across the world, many of them medical programs. Now, if you're traveling through remote places in Africa, in the Middle East and Asia, you see the effects of these various diseases that we've mostly eradicated here in the Western world, in Europe and North America. We've mostly eradicated them because of vaccines. I grew up in Africa. I saw this firsthand. I worked in these environments where people that do not have access, that we are there trying to give them these vaccines, are benefiting from it. You see it clear as day. It's not anecdotal. I'm speaking from experience. I've been there. I've seen people sick, and I've seen people benefit from vaccines. I come from Africa. It is vital to ensure that we didn't have the kind of vaccines you have here. We didn't have the regime that you have here. I get it, and I'm done.
So my wife will tell you that I've always supported vaccines, and since our children were young, I will say also that, you know, that there is choice. And we hear a lot about my body, my choice, my choice. And I know people, a lady from Maple Ridge, her mother died within 10 minutes of getting vaccinated. I was vaccinated both times. Yes, she died within 10 minutes. I had shingles right after my second. I was second wave with shingles. I never had that before. Variety of symptoms. There are consequences to it. So yes, I supported the vaccines and the choice, but even the health authorities in British Columbia said that a vaccine does not prevent you from getting COVID nor from transmitting. So if it basically influences, that is from the British Columbia Health. So that's the thing where you can make informed decisions.
So I'm not an epidemiologist or a doctor, a medical doctor. For me to make an informed decision on this, I'm not sure how I would do that. I trust in our doctors, I trust in our system. And when we live amongst others, I think we have a responsibility to others. I also know people who had side effects from vaccines, or not doubting what Marc is saying about a friend's mother who passed away. But what seems to be clear to me through the medical evidence suggested is that those numbers are this big compared to this big. And not to minimize anyone's loss of life, but the fact is vaccines, as Daniel pointed out, throughout the world have increased our health and our well-being overall. I'm a vaxxer.
Okay. Last question, well, possibly last question. I might get you when you're summarizing. The problem of toxic drug supply is getting worse all the time. What is the cause? And what are your plans to combat this at the federal level?
I'm not a doctor, so it's hard to work out exactly what the cause is. It's a variety of it. Every person that becomes a victim of an addiction, their own personal story is unique to them. It doesn't translate across the entire community. It could be mental health, it could be family issues, it could be a variety of things. So what you can do about it is make sure that there are programs in place. So, and I know people don't like some of these safe use sites, but if you're trying to wean them off a particular drug, a safe use site is a place where they can use something that's clean and not tainted with the toxins that you're talking about. And hopefully wean them off, putting money into mental health programs, putting money into the addiction programs, putting money into housing so that the unhoused can find a place to live and become stable, and hopefully get them off that path of addiction that they are on.
If I knew the cause and the solution, oh, sorry, I'm not trying to be funny, it's emotional. I would have shared it. Like many families, I've experienced this within my family. And as Daniel said, we need support. There's not one answer, and we have to keep trying.
My years teaching in the jails showed that a lot of the pathway to jail was addiction. Addiction is a terrible thing, and it's non-discriminatory. It chooses the young, the old, every race, both genders, and the results are always terrible. Now, going back to the last question, when we talk about vaccines, and again, I'm not a doctor, what are the pharmaceutical companies that create these things, are they accountable in any way? Okay, this is something for us to think about. When we talk about toxic drug supply, I'm not exactly sure what that means. I know that the things like fentanyl are terribly strong, okay, much stronger than heroin, and just touching it can be enough to kill you. So is this coming from pharmaceutical companies, or is it coming from illegal drug labs? I get the feeling it's the former.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's definitely clear to all of us here that this is a very serious situation that we're facing as far as the drug crises. And as I mentioned, 50,000 have died in the past 10 years from overdose, and I know different ones. And I've cried with people that have died. They're not, with their children have died. It's terrible. So the definition of insanity is to keep on doing the same thing over and over again. What we're doing is not working. It's getting worse. Many people so many are dying. So conservatives will invest in treatment and recovery because there is a hope. I've seen there are thousands. You go to the recovery days. I've had forums here that there is hope for people to make it through. We will also put serious time for serious crime, and that is pushing fentanyl at 40 milligrams or more. If you got caught 3 times doing this, you'll be doing life imprisonment. We're taking this seriously.
I agree there should be serious time for people that are pushing it, but you should not criminalize the users. They should not be going to jail for using something. It's an addiction and they need help, not jail.
Thanks, Danielle. So we're about to start our wrap. The candidates were told they'd have a 1 minute to wrap, but we're going to give them 2 minutes to wrap. And the one question we haven't asked, but you might consider it in your wrap, is backbench MPs rarely do anything aside from voting their party line. What will you do that would make me vote for you as a representative rather than just voting for a party? And we'll start with Daniel.
Well, I'm a little bit of an iconoclast for most things. Even in the military, I try and find ways to make changes. It doesn't always win me adherence and my leadership. I recently lost my job because I'm running for the NDP. That's one of the reasons. Not the whole reason, but one of the reasons. So I don't mind doing something if it's going to make me enemies, if it's the right thing to do. That's just how I roll. One of the things, so that's that part of the question. One of the things we need to make sure that we address is, and it's come up a few times on this debate tonight, is promises made during campaigns with no follow-up once people are in Parliament. And the only way to do that is if we had better representation. We did not get electoral reform. We did not get a way for everyone to have a proper voice at the table. There are people that should be sitting in Parliament and having a voice and helping their communities that are not there because of first past the post. So that is something that is tragic that it wasn't followed through on, and we should have that. So with just a few NDP people in Parliament last time, you were able to get a lot of things through and a lot of tangible social programs that help people every single day. And so we got to be careful that we don't head towards a two-party state, which is almost what we're heading towards. And whoever's in power next needs to make sure that they absolutely push through some form of electoral reform where we talk about proportional representation, where we talk about ranked choice, some other options, so that people can have a say, because too many people are being left out of the discussion.
So I will say it's been a tremendous honor to serve you as a member of Parliament for 6 years and as the member of the Legislative Assembly for 8 years. And for me, this is not a cushy job. This is a job of service. This is a job of giving to you, of listening, of serving, of hearing. We work so hard in our office, my team, to support, to provide answers for people, no matter what party they serve. We're nonpartisan, and we see results. I go door to door. I talk to people all over this community that come up to me and say, we are so thankful for what you've done. I take what I hear, I do what I can, and I work hard for this community, for Pitt Meadows, for Maple Ridge, and I represented Mission in the past, and I hope to represent it again also. So I will say this one here. Everyone I speak with, regardless of past voting choices, seem to agree that life in general has become more difficult economically, that drug overdoses have become a crisis with 50,000 deaths, that the crime rate has risen, that our communities are less safe. Most agree that the past decade has been almost impossible for young families to buy a home. 1.3 British Columbians don't have a family doctor. The national debt has doubled. Our per capita global ranking has been dropping year after year. And multi-million-dollar scandals benefiting Liberal MPs and their friends are everyday news. The Liberals, advised by Marc rejected opportunities to export our minerals and natural gas and oil to other countries and made us vulnerable to Trump's economic hostilities. Canadians cannot afford a fourth Liberal term with cost and crime up and our economy down under America's thumbs. I leave you with one question as you go to the polls. Can we afford 14 years of Liberal governance?
I will represent you. I will represent our community. Collaborative work is key to moving anything forward, to finding common solutions, as Daniel mentioned as well, working together to make common sense decisions. I'm ready to be that voice. I thank you for your support.
I've got great news for you. There's no threat of me going into office. So I can say whatever I want. I mean, believe me, I'm trying to be very honest. Well, I'm not trying. I don't have to try. I'm just being honest. If, let's just say by some weird twist of fate, that you had a Rhinocéros Party representative here in Pitt Meadows and Maple Ridge, I would be alone. I wouldn't have to follow any party line. I wouldn't have to vote with the majority. I wouldn't have to do any of that because I'd be free. Wouldn't you like that? Well, I'm going to use my time, I'm improvising. I've improvised everything tonight. I don't have notes or anything. When you talk about crime and increasing time behind bars for a certain number of crimes and that sort of thing, I really wonder if that's a deterrent to crime. I really have seen very, very little of that in my life, and frankly, the people that say punish harder, hit them harder, put them in jail longer, I wonder what kind of parents they are. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all. That is almost a wrap. I want to thank the candidates for coming out. I want to thank the audience for coming and cheering, and I want to thank everyone for being polite and respectful. One gentleman in the audience that Drake suggested, and I thought it was a great suggestion, that we should have had a Canadian flag up behind everyone here. Because we're all in it together. We're all Canadians, different perspectives possibly, but we're not having the kind of things other countries have. So it's good news. I want to thank the organizing committee. They're back there. It's the Maple Ridge Climate Hub Cycling, the CEED Center Society, and Cinema Politica. I'd like to thank our crew up here who kept us going, and the ding. Okay. And I don't know if the person who put all this on wants to come up and say anything. Kirk?
I wasn't really planning to, but I will take the opportunity to just say thank you so much for coming. This makes so much difference to be able to come and listen to the candidates in person, hear what they have to say, share some of your thoughts and ideas, which you've done. And I would say the last half, the questions really got to the heart of a lot of things that we're all thinking about. So thank you so much.
So that's it. We said it'd go to 9. We get you out 2 minutes early. Go home safe.
Great job.
have no idea why that one channel went down.